Hey guys, and welcome back to the Happy Healing Shop channel. Today we're going to be discussing twin flames with Vedic astrologer SunGoddess Ashley. And we're going to be talking about the idea of twin flames and the misconceptions behind twin flames from both an astrologer point of view and a psychic medium point of view. So,
this is going to be great.
Yeah, we're excited. Let's dive right into this.
Okay.
So a twin flame is basically the idea that you have another part of your soul that has split off and inhabited another body, or is residing in another dimension in spirit that you can connect to. And so people will try to find these twin flames on earth, searching high and low for this other half of their soul or other part of their soul that's split off. That's basically a replica of them. And there can be kind of almost mirrored traits or sometimes extremely similar traits. And usually twin flame relationships, because of that, can be very challenging for people.
I think this is what people say when they're looking for their other half.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, or there's this notion of you complete me, right? As if there is fundamentally something missing within you for someone else to complete. Like you wouldn't be a whole person without this twin flame or your ultimate love match. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that is probably intuitively where people are kind of talking about, but they maybe don't know about twin flames, but there's that fundamental feeling that they're a half of something, which is not very healthy.
That's not healthy.
No, that's not great for your psychology.
And I don't feel like this video is going to be about how to find your twin flame, but it's how to recognize more who is not your twin flame. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So as an astrologer and, psychic medium, we get approached a lot about people wanting to know about love, and usually prefacing with, oh, I've already met my twin flame, or can you look at me and my twin? And one, they're already telling you, I've met my twin. So you can't argue with that. You can't, as a reader, be like, no, you haven't, or no, that's a false flame, or whatever that is, because they've already kind of set out the precedence for how this reading is going to go. And so do you find that people are just, when they start off with that they're wanting just validation that yes, you've met your twin flame, and they want you to tell them just all lovely, beautiful things about how you're gonna fall in love and have a million babies and live happily ever after in Bambi land?
Bambi land. Yeah. It definitely concerns me, because I feel like it creates almost an obsession,
right?
And then it becomes almost a delusion. So like, because people don't want to, I think they want it now and they want something immediately, and they don't like the idea of waiting and getting to a good place before they find someone to be in a relationship. And so they're like, yeah, you know what? This is hard. You must be a twin flame relationship. And so people do want, I think some part of them knows there's something wrong. And so they just immediately, with that insecurity, like, this is my twin flame, right? Like, I just know it is. And then you're like, well, why are you coming to me? Because something in them is like, something is off about this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
deep
and
down,
they feel that. Yeah, exactly. That insecurity is coming out, which is interesting.
Because why are you going to a reader then? Mm-hmm. If you know that this is your person, you don't need validation. You don't need that verification or that signing off from somebody else. So this can be dangerous. And let's talk a little bit about why this is a kind of a dangerous path to go down. I feel like recently, I don't know who coined this term or where it came from, but it did pop up recently. I don't know, maybe the last 5-10 years even, as like a very popular pop culture term, just like Mercury retrograde, just like a lot of things that take on a life of their own and have these sort of, special meanings. I don't know where it came from, but now everybody now has to meet their twin flame, and that can be a lot of pressure on someone. If I don't meet this person, then again, I'm not whole, and that again is unhealthy. So do you know where this, why did this start? What are your thoughts on why this even came to be in the first place? We've heard of soulmates. Mm-hmm. We've heard of kindred spirits, twin souls, kindred spirits, whatever. Why the twin flame? Why do you think this popped up?
So I think when I first started finding out about twin flames about, I don't know, like 6-7 years ago, I remember there was like these old websites from like the 90s talking about twin flames. And really, like, they were, I mean, it sounded great, but they also were talking about how it's extraordinarily difficult and that a lot of twin flame relationships don't last. So this came about, I think, by some psychic mediums were maybe starting to channel this information and put it forth. And anytime you put a label on something, it can be good or sometimes it can be really bad because it creates almost like a creature that runs loose, you know?
Right.
And people they hear it on Instagram or they have all these popular YouTube, maybe psychics or astrologers throwing it around like all the time. And the truth is that everyone's path is different and you may not be meant to meet, if you want to call it your twin flame in this life. So a lot of people have aspects of themselves that are in another dimension already.
Right.
And they're there guiding you. Is like you can even refer to it as and now your higher self is a little different, but it's still an aspect of you that's another dimension. So it feels like it kind of branched off from people trying to understand the complexity of our souls and how they exist in different dimensions and how they can incarnate, because you can have the same soul split into several people incarnated at the same time.
Yeah.
Although it can be more on the rare side from what I understand.
And I like that you said that it takes you away from trying to understand the progression of your soul. Again, going back to this sort of snack-like immediate gratification culture that we live in, especially in the West, where we want everything and we want it now, we don't want to wait. And if something is rare, then it's more valuable. And of course, everyone wants the valuable thing because then it's a validation of, I'm a worthy person, right? It's like a self-esteem booster, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and people also want to feel like they want the best. They want the cream of the crop. So like they're like, oh no, I don't just want a soulmate relationship. I want a twin flame relationship. Like I'm gonna have the best freaking relationship. And but here's the thing is that you should really be aiming to find a relationship that's healthy for you. It doesn't matter. Take the labels off of it. Take the soulmate, take the twin flame, whatever you want. Take the past lives thing out of it and just be like, what is the healthiest relationship that helps you to grow in a positive way and makes you feel whole, like possible, brings out what's already whole in you instead of thinking this person's going to complete me.
Bingo. That's what you have to look for. What is a healthy relationship and not just the title? Because if you go to a reader and they say, oh, you're going to meet your twin flame, then you have that expectation of like, I'm going to meet the love of my life and it's going to be easy. And it's not an easy path. Sometimes this can be devastating when people meet very, very strong soul ties with somebody, whether it's a twin flame or just a very significant soulmate. It's usually for the growth of your soul, which isn't compatible with, a earth lifestyle of, love, sex, money, pleasure, all of that. The soul has nothing to do with any of that. So it does show you what needs to be healed. Now, when I look at a chart and I see two people's compatibility charts together, I do see like red flags with certain combinations. So usually when a person is coming with a partner that they want me to look at, there is a strong tie with that other person. So there's going to be conjunctions. There's going to be common planetary placements between the two people's charts. I have seen a lot of the times, especially the planet Rahu, being an influence in the person's chart. So Rahu, let me just explain a little bit about what that is, since it's not really a common term unless you're really deep into astrology. Rahu is a Vedic astrology term for what Western tropicals use as the North Node. So it's the North Node of the Moon. There are 2 points that are opposite each other. So we're just going to do a little brief astrology lesson. So cool. We have Rahu on one side, Ketu on the other, and they're always 180 degrees away from each other. So you've got the North Node and the South Node. They're the two extremes. They're polar opposites and they are extremes. These points are actually shadow points that create the eclipses. So anytime you have a new moon or a full moon next to these eclipse points, that's when you'll have the eclipse happen. So Rahu is the North Node. The qualities of it are obsession, compulsion, addictions, insanity, delusion, Anything that completely grips your mindset and it feels like it's taking control over you, or you feel, so a lot of times Rahu can be an influence because it's very alluring. It's very tempting. It's very potent. I would say it can be toxic, but first, medicine isn't toxic. It's like an elixir that stimulates the senses. And you're like, wow, you're vibrating on every level when you meet this person. And when you have that connection, it can then turn into unhealthy traits. So when you start seeing unhealthy things come up in the chart, or there's unhealthy behaviors in a person's life, what they're doing, that's really the red flag. And people can rationalize away red flags because it feels so good, right? It feels, and oftentimes it's like kind of a magnetic draw, so it can be very sexual. And everybody likes that feeling of being lit up and feeling attractive, right? Or the strong attraction to somebody. But oftentimes I've seen in compatibility charts, like if someone has, like if your partner has their Rahu on your moon, which is your personal psychology, it can cloud your vision and your, but basically like your mental process, so you wouldn't be able to see clearly. And it can be disruptive to sleep, where you just can't sleep, you can't eat, everything is like you're consumed with thoughts of this person. And then I've also seen Rahu on Venus. This is also another toxic combination where it's like hedonism times 1,000. So this type of relationship can be very addictive, and it's very sexual based. A lot of times drugs are involved. And it's just something that feels like it's bigger than you.
I can see how it's easy to get wrapped up in something like that. I mean, that's intense. So what are some things that like you've noticed that attract people into this kind of relationship? Like, is there a certain trauma or a certain life event?
I think that there's trauma bonding for sure. So if someone has trauma, especially at an early age, there's something that as a young person you're not old enough or have the tools to really work through. So there's a wound then in early adulthood or adulthood to work through. So that wound is then a core trauma that's been layered on top of life circumstances over years, and it can be buried and forgotten. And so you have a coping mechanism to just get through life. And when you meet someone that's a twin flame type person or a soulmate, which often I feel like they can be confused, that person triggers that original wound. And it's not just that you don't recognize it because it's familiar. It's so deeply ingrained, and that trauma is so deeply familiar to that person that the person feels like familiar because they're a mirror to what that trauma is, that familiar trauma is. So when you feel like, oh, I've known you for so long, we must have had past lives together. Yes, maybe that's true, but also what that person could be saying is, you're so familiar because I recognize you showing me this wound that I've been living with for so many years that I'm not consciously aware of anymore.
That is powerful. Ashley, the way you described that was dead on. Yeah. It's
Okay.
And the thing, and when I'm looking at people's energies as a psychic medium, I see these same things. There's usually some major childhood trauma, and people like to re-experience that pain as a way to process, and they don't realize they're doing it. So here's the thing is like, soulmates and twin flames, like I think people could potentially get confused a lot by them. What is your understanding of the difference of twin flames versus soulmates?
Well, I don't actually know the answer to that. I think I'm not 100% certain that I even really believe in a twin flame relationship. Like we said, it's very, very rare. And even if you find, or even if you do have a twin flame, they're likely to be on the other side.
Yeah.
They're not likely to be here. So this can be like a showing up as like a guide or a guardian angel or something that's like that. It's a significant soul being on the other side that's on one dimension mirroring this dimension.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you really do ever meet the other half of your twin flame. And when you die, and your soul goes back up to the other side, if it goes to heaven, which, yes, so then the other soul can incarnate as well. So there's this sort of teeter-totter of like this balance of like switching lives and switching roles, because that person is the other part of you. They're not separate from you. Right?
Yeah.
So do we ever really meet our twin flames? I don't know. I'm not like an expert. I don't know everything. This is just what I've seen and what I've observed from my personal experiences as a reader and astrologer. But if you were to meet your twin flame, what's the purpose of continuing, right? If everything was perfect in existence, and we lived if we had complete perfect lives and we lived in this utopia, what would be the purpose of improving on another day or having another day to keep going and something else to improve on? If everything was perfect, then there would be no need to continue the human race at all.
Precisely.
So what do you feel like is the difference between twin flames and soulmates? I would like to know your thoughts on this as a medium.
It's so there's like the part of it that way before I became a professional psychic medium, and I was just trying to understand my own like gifts and stuff, I came across the idea of twin flames and everything and soulmates, and I was like, well, what's the difference? And there's what I read and what I feel, and in some ways I feel like they're fairly aligned. So like a soulmate is, from what I understand and what I feel to be true, is that soulmate can be anyone you've had past life with that is coming in to serve a certain purpose for growth in this life. So, for example, your annoying boss at work could be a soulmate, but also the person you married could be a soulmate. And the soulmate is not from the same soul as you. They can be from the same soul family or soul tribe, whatever you want to call it. So maybe it's a group of souls that was created at the same time to experience the same kind of a soul family that's really about literature, or a soul family that's really about science. Like maybe they tend to incarnate in those roles or whatever. So it can be like that too. But are also other people that you've had past life experiences with, and you can also get confused. There's that connection again when you meet someone that you get a weird feeling about, but you're weirdly attracted to them. It could also be a soulmate or just a recognition from a past life, and it doesn't mean you're supposed to connect. But usually if you're not going to connect with them, they're outside of your sphere of who you'll meet. So, yes. and then a twin flame, is like the other split off like of your soul that has traits that can mirror yours and things like that. So that's kind of my understanding of the two different.
Okay.
But I mean, a soulmate relationship, how it feels when you meet, you're more likely to meet a soulmate than a twin flame, because you're meeting soulmates all the time, and you don't just have one. You can have, and here's the thing, is that a soulmate, you can have a romantic soulmate, and maybe you do have one, but maybe you also have three. Maybe your first two marriages, they taught you up to this point, thanks for the lesson. Right. Oh, now I have this one.
Yeah.
And so, like after spouses die, you'll see someone else, I never thought I could find love again, and then they do. That could be another soulmate relationship. And then also, you can adopt a cat, and that's your soulmate. So it's really who's supposed to come in this life and teach you those lessons.
It's not just a romantic.
Mm-hmm. That's a misconception of
that's one of the misconceptions, is that soulmates or your twin flame is just romantic. Could you have a twin flame with like your mother or your father? Mm-hmm. Could that be a twin flame?
But here's the problem, is that the pop part of the spiritual world, there's like a very pop, like fun, polished Cosmo version of what we do that is kind of inaccurate a lot of the times, and it can mislead people by feeding them what's popular, what they want to hear. And so it's been branded as like your soulmate is love, your twin flame is love, but that's not always the case.
And I feel
often
like
it's not.
There's so many different types of love that we don't acknowledge.
Amen.
Yes, especially I feel like in this culture, I don't want to blame everything on culture, but I feel like this is just, you find this, it's like with these movies, like the love stories and like romantic novels, like it's all very, again, sensual, very sexual, very romantic, but there's all just types of love. You have love for your family, love for your friends, love for your neighbors, your coworkers. There's all different types of relationships and all different types of love, and they're not comparable as one is being really better than the other.
If you were able to give advice to a client that you see that they're in a toxic relationship thinking it's twin flame, if you could just tell them everything you wanted to tell them, what would you say?
Oh man.
Noted.
I don't know, because it would require a lot of questions on my part. Yeah. I think it would be more of like an interview, like, why do you think this person is your twin flame? What are they doing for you? How have you grown since then? How have you not grown? What are the challenges? So I feel like instead of me just telling someone it is your twin flame or it's not your twin flame, I feel like it would be kind of like a question process where we can kind of sift through some things, and it ends up being kind of the client is then able to kind of realize themselves, oh, those were the red flags that I'm admitting to you now. It feels weird to admit those things.
Yeah.
So
that makes that's great. I love that.
I guess that's what I'd say.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's great. Asking questions is that's a great way to, because it's helpful when someone can come to that conclusion themselves, for sure.
I think that's the most empowering. Right?
Also, a note about if you do happen to be someone who found that rare twin flame experience, a lot of times you're not actually supposed to stay with that person. They've incarnated to teach you a lesson, but it can be very temporary. But there's such a pull that through time and space you keep wanting to get back together, and you keep wanting to get back together. But you have to ask yourself, if it didn't work the first time or the second time, maybe it's time to move on and let each other be, because you could still have a soul connection with someone and live loving lives separately. So also keep that in mind. If you do find that twin flame relationship somehow, then you also have to be cognizant if it's actually healthy for you, because it doesn't matter what label you put on it. If it's not healthy for you, you shouldn't really indulge that experience, because then, like you said earlier, you get stuck in a place where you're not growing in all these other areas.
How does somebody know? Well, two things, first of all. So it's kind of like what you're saying is like a Harry met Sally kind of situation where they kind of keep getting, reconnected. There's kind of this holding out for one day. And that's what also is kind of a red flag for something that's unhealthy, especially with women. They're like, oh, one day he will or she will be that person that I want them to be with X, Y, and Z. I see so much potential. And holding on to potential is holding on to hope, which isn't the reality of the situation. So that's an indicator that this isn't healthy for you now. And I think that people are like, well, I'll just wait for them to do their work, and they put their heart on hold, where they could be meeting other great partners, but they have their heart set on this person who isn't, they know this isn't where that person needs to be, so I'll just wait for them.
And see that the person you should be working on is yourself.
Exactly.
Don't worry about them. If you're not,
harder.
It is, and that's why people avoid it like the plague. It's like when we look in the mirror and see all the things we don't like about ourselves, we don't want to see it. We photo filter our faces with these apps, and we project a certain persona in the world. But if you're not happy putting through who you are, head to toe, inside and out, then it's time to turn inward and understand why you're not happy about those things. And there's not a person on the planet who will fix all that for you, because that is a power that has been gifted to you and you chose to incarnate in this life. A person should enhance your life, but not be the be-all end-all. You should be able to live a completely separate life if you needed to, just fine. And when you meet that person, you're 100% whole already, and you don't feel like you need a relationship. It's something that happens naturally. That's a big part of a kind of an indicator for yourself. When you're feeling like you've done a lot of work, you're like, I'm happy, I'm doing what I want, and then like, oh, he's kind of cute, maybe I'll see what happens.
Yeah, it should be easy, not drama right off the bat, or passion. Sometimes these, I think, can be confused. How do you know if you're in a healthy relationship?
Well, one of the big things to understand about knowing you're in a healthy relationship is, one, are you changing yourself in extreme ways, even small ways, like so many little small ways to like fit yourself around that person, that's a big indicator. So if you're like constantly, oh, walking on eggshells, like, oh, I'll do this, okay, oh, I'll give up this hobby for you, I'll do this, I'll give up this for you. Like, why are you doing that? Like, someone should plug into you and compliment you, not cause you to like, you know, give up all the things that you enjoy about yourself or like change your life drastically. Also, both people should be kind of accepting of what each other is interested in. Like encourage each other, even if it's not something you're into, and being able to say like, I would love for you to just be happy and do what's best for you. And also another thing is that there's emotional support. There's not like manipulation and like pulling people away from their family and friends subtly, making little comments about your weight or like how you look, like all those little manipulation tactics. That's not someone you want to spend the rest of your life with. So another thing too is like being able to like go somewhere together and have fun. So like, you know, sometimes people go and travel together and they're just bickering the whole time. Like if you can go somewhere, even if it's like a little quick trip and you had a great time together, you didn't really argue and it was nice, like that's a good indicator that you're able to like let the little bickering things go that weigh people down. So those are some like kind of things I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah.
How about you? What have you observed?
I would say along the same lines is, is this person supporting your dreams? Are they giving more to you to enhance who you are, or are you changing in different ways? I think that's a big thing. And also, I think it's just, is it easy? You shouldn't have to try so hard to make something work, because that's an indication that it's not working. Mm-hmm. Of course, you run into challenges if you're in a long-term relationship that you can work on, but there's a certain kind of threshold for that. And is it, you know, too much too soon? All of that. So, but that's the thing with like love. You don't think with your head, you think with your heart. So it's, that's it's so tough. It's so tough. And I think that's why it's beneficial to get another perspective from an astrologer or a medium, psychic medium, to help you kind of get back into your head about things and sort of logically process. That's where the benefit of getting a reading about, is this person my soulmate or my twin flame, is that beneficial or not?
Yeah, and it's that you're talking about that those kind of two separate things that kind of should be in a column. And what if someone's healthy and working on themselves, being able to balance the head and the heart so that they're respecting one another, and not one's not your head's not overbearing your heart, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So if you're learning to accept these various facets of yourself and blend them together, then you can make more well-rounded decisions rather than just doing something out of trauma. So then now you're just using your head or your, you know, or you're, oh my God, I'm scared of everything, so I'm going to do this thing. So that's, yeah. Let us know in the comments below if you have any questions for us about soulmates, twin flames. We'd love to hear your comments and your feedback. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like it and subscribe to the Happy Healing Shop channel. And this annoying little statement about clicking the bell for notifications, you can do that too. So thank you so much for watching. You can find us on happyhealingshop.com for either of our services. And also you can find Ashley on Instagram
at SunGoddess Astrology or SunGoddess Ashley. Also have a YouTube channel, SunGoddess Astrology.
Yeah, be sure to check that out. She's got a lot of amazing information. She's great at what she does. And thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you again with another video soon.